And the waters of the great flood were abated, and the ark of Noah came to rest upon Ararat. The skies were cleansed, and the earth lay silent, and all things living had perished from the ground. But hidden in the clefts of rock and mountain, in shadows where the flood had not fully reached, remnants of the rebellion stirred once more, and among them were the wives of the fallen. These were not mortal as other women were, for their wombs had borne giants and spirits of terror. Though the flood swept away their children of wrath, the wives endured in places deep and forgotten. They clothed themselves in secrecy and shadow, their hearts hardened by the loss of their seed, and they vowed upon the graves of their sons to rise again and finish what had begun. They wandered through desolate lands and broken cities, where the bones of giants lay buried in ash, and they wept not for their wickedness nor their fall, but for the glory that was taken from them. They spoke to the winds, and the winds replied. They whispered to the trees, and the earth answered. For the spirits of their sons lingered still, restless and wrathful, born of cursed unions. In secret they gathered in the land of Nod, beyond the rivers where no man yet dwelt. There they built altars of stone and fire, calling upon the names of the watchers bound. They carved their memories into cave and cliff, teaching the beasts and birds with strange words. They mixed herbs and blood and chanted in tongues to keep the memory of their husbands alive. Though heaven had cast them down in wrath, they forged pacts with the wandering spirits. The demons born from the Nephilim answered, clinging to their mothers as flames cling to oil. These unclean spirits taught them secret ways to sway the minds of men and draw their gaze. So began again the enchantment of nations, though veiled in new tongues and forgotten names. They adorned themselves in robes of silver and gold and walked among men as priestesses and queens. They taught the cutting of roots and the watching of stars and how to draw power from blood and bone. To kings they whispered of thrones and wars, and to wise men they sold lies as wisdom. Men called them divine and bowed at their feet and forgot the law of the Most High God. In the land of Shinar they sowed confusion, and from their tongues came many languages. They stirred the heart of Nimrod to rebel and built the tower that reached for heaven. They taught the builders forbidden things, to mimic the watchers and defy the skies. But God came down and scattered their pride, and the tower crumbled beneath his breath. Yet the wives did not cease nor turn from their ways, but fled into the hills with cunning and guile. There they raised daughters after their likeness, born of mortal men but bearing ancient craft. These daughters danced before idols of stone and drew nations into harlotry and shame. Thus were born the priestesses of Ashtoreth and the mothers of sorcery in every land. They corrupted the temples with sacred lewdness and taught that lust was a path to the divine. They painted their faces and braided their hair and wrapped men in snares stronger than iron. Their eyes held the fire of ancient rebellion, and their hands worked ruin in cities and courts. Kings bowed to them as oracles and seers, but their hearts burned with hatred of heaven. And the Lord looked upon the earth once more, and saw the shadow rising from the east. He spake to his holy ones in silence, and his spirit grieved within the heavens. For though the flood had wiped the slate clean, the root of defiance had sprouted again. The daughters of the fallen stirred the nations, and turned the hearts of men toward false gods. In Egypt they built temples for the dead, and mummified kings to dwell with the stars. They worshipped beasts and bowed to serpents, and read omens in the entrails of the slain. The wives of the fallen walked among them, veiled in gold and wrapped in mystery. They gave counsel to pharaohs in secret and called upon the names that heaven forbade. In Canaan they danced upon high places and burned children upon altars of fire. Their voices echoed in groves of cedar, where they summoned spirits to enter into men. The giants were gone, but their ways remained, planted in rites and veiled in symbols. The land groaned beneath their iniquity and cried out again unto the Lord. In Babylon they sat upon scarlet thrones, clothed in purple and drunk with blood. They bore golden cups filled with blasphemy and led kings into abominations. The spirits of their sons served as guards, invisible and cruel, bound by old pacts. The wives laughed upon their ivory beds and said, "Who can oppose us? We are divine." But in secret some among them repented and wept for the evil they had done. They tore their robes and called on the Most High, asking if there might still be mercy. And to them was given a veil of silence, that they might dwell in shadow until the end. Their children turned from the paths of ruin and were counted among the strangers who fear God. Yet the greater number rejoiced in rebellion and raised up temples in every nation. They taught the stars and spoke of the zodiac, and bound men's fates to stones and seasons. They whispered to the rulers in dreams and appeared as goddesses to wandering men. So grew the cults of the moon and sun, and men bowed down to what the Lord had made. And so the earth was filled once more with deceit, though the sword of the flood had passed over. For the hearts of men were drawn to mystery, and the wives offered wonders wrapped in sin. They taught charms to heal and curses to kill, and bound spirits to idols of wood and clay. With honeyed tongues they deceived the nations, and their beauty became a net unto the kings. They wandered into the north and west, beyond the great rivers, and into the cold lands. There they became mistresses of forests and hills, teaching druids and sages forbidden lore. They stirred the cauldrons of witches in silence, and sowed the seeds of many dark arts. From their lips came riddles and runes, and their shadows danced in the fire of night. In India they veiled themselves in silk and incense, and claimed divinity beneath many names. They spoke of the heavens in wheels and flames, and gave strange powers to wandering ascetics. They mingled with serpents and peacocks, and their temples rose with 1,000 steps. Men chanted to them beneath sacred trees, unknowing they fed demons with every breath. In the isles of the sea they shaped legends, and made their husbands gods in sailors' tales. They lured mariners to death with songs, and painted the skies with false constellations. They taught the worship of wind and wave, and bound spirits into pearls and stones. Thus the oceans held secrets from the beginning, and the deep remembered their cries. But the Lord sent his messengers in secret to preserve a remnant in the earth. Prophets arose who spoke in parables, and revealed the hidden things of the deep. The children of Shem walked with wisdom, and built altars not made with hands. Though surrounded by seduction and death, they clung to the promise of the Holy One. Then the Lord said unto his host in heaven, The hour comes when all shall be revealed. The seed of rebellion shall bear its fruit, and the harvest shall be gathered in fire. The wives of the fallen have waxed bold again, and the daughters of defiance fill the cities. Their time shall be numbered and brought to end, and the nations shall learn to tremble once more. And the heavens were sealed for a season, while men walked blindly beneath darkened stars. The angels wept for the folly of man, and the spirits of the righteous cried from the earth. Uriel looked down and grieved in silence, and Michael stood watch with sword in hand. Gabriel sounded not his trumpet yet, for the day of reckoning was appointed. The wives of the fallen built cities of splendor, and named them after the ancient ones. They wrote their stories into stone and scroll, and taught men to worship the past. They crowned themselves with gold and fire, and claimed to be mothers of gods and kings. But their beauty was a mask for rot, and their crowns were filled with serpents. In secret they plotted against the holy seed, that a redeemer might never be born. They mingled bloodlines and defiled the womb, and sought to corrupt the promise given to Eve. But the word of the Lord stood forever, and his seed was guarded by unseen hands. The line of righteousness walked through fire, and the serpent's snare was broken by grace. The daughters of rebellion faded into myth, but their spirits wandered, seeking flesh. They stirred dreams and whispered to poets, and hid in the shadows of pagan lore. They waited for the age of forgetfulness, when men would call good evil and evil good. Then they returned in new garments and names, preaching progress while hiding the poison. But the watchers of heaven see all things, and the scrolls of judgment remain open. The deeds of the wives are not forgotten, nor the tears of the innocent they ensnared. The Lord has appointed a final hour, when truth shall blaze and lies shall flee. The fire that once consumed Sodom shall rise, and every unclean thing shall be burned away. In that day they shall cry to the rocks, Hide us from the face of the Holy One. But no cave shall conceal, no sea shall cover, the wrath of him who sits on the throne. For their sorceries shall fail, and their gods shall fall, and their beauty shall be consumed as chaff. The spirits they bore shall gnash their teeth, bound in chains in the depths of flame. Then shall the earth be made new again, and the righteous shall walk in light eternal. No more shall the name of the fallen be spoken, nor the seductions of their wives remembered. For the Lamb shall dwell with his people, and every tear shall be wiped away. The city of God shall rise like the dawn, and peace shall be its everlasting crown. Blessed is he who heeds these words, and turns not to the idols of old. For the path is narrow and the gate is true, and the way of the wicked leads to ruin. Let the wise discern the signs of the times, and the faithful flee from the harlot's house. For the fire is kindled and the axe is laid, and the judge stands ready at the door. And lo, the daughters of darkness shall rise once more, clothed in modern speech and science profane. They shall call upon the stars and machines alike, mingling spirits with circuits and data with dreams. In the name of knowledge they shall open the gates and summon ancient forces in digital form. Yet the Lord shall not be mocked nor deceived, for even in code the mark of rebellion is clear. Then shall the heavens be rent with thunder, and the veil shall fall from every eye. The true light shall break upon every land, and the secrets of the deep shall be laid bare. The Lamb shall come with hosts arrayed, and every false queen shall fall from her throne. The memory of the wives shall perish like smoke, and holiness shall flood the earth like a mighty river. This is the record of the daughters of ruin, and the vengeance of the Lord Most High. It is sealed in the scrolls of heaven and earth, and shall be read before angels and men. Let all who walk in truth give glory, and let the wicked fall in fear. For the days of rebellion are numbered, and the reign of righteousness shall have no end. Amen.